Hi, my name is Winslet, and welcome to my video on the 7th Dev Diary for Age of Wonders 4. I know it says Dev Diary 5 here. That's just how it was posted. This is the 7th Dev Diary. There was a lot of really interesting things in this Dev Diary. It took me about twice as long to read this as previous Dev Diaries, but before we jump into that, I did want to mention that we're getting a lot of really exciting stuff today. Um, March 2nd, but I'm only covering this because the stuff from Quill 18 and Maurice Weber and Explorminate aren't out yet. If I'm quick enough, I should be able to get my video out a little bit before those videos and streams go up. I believe Maurice Weber is going to be playing a little bit today and showing off how his crown is in the game, which is something I actually haven't seen before. So I'm really curious about that. I'll probably do a video on that topic and all the other stuff in the near future. If I have enough time, I'll do it tomorrow, or you know, if not, I'll do it next week. And then Quill 18, he's also got some cosmetics in there. He didn't show up off what item he has, but apparently he's going to be streaming today, and you can get some cosmetics for playing in Age of Wonders 4 to add to your leaders in Age of Wonders 4 if you want to. So feel free to go check that stuff out today. I'm not sure how long they're playing, but I think it's just like a short stream. And then Explore Minute is going to cover 4 things that they found out after 50 hours of playing with the preview build. The only thing that was off limits was multiplayer, so he got to dive right into it and explore it like we will when we get access to the game ourselves. Um, so yeah, back to the dev diary. It starts off by talking about vision a little bit and how that's going to affect your ability to explore. When you are uncovering the tiles around you, you're going to have this fog, which actually is going to match the environment a little bit. It says that they swirl around the mountaintops, and you can kind of see a little bit more than in previous Age of Wonders games, and with how their fog of war ended up working. So you can see some things like settlements and armies and things like that just in the fog. And I like that change. Some units will have camouflage, so you won't be able to see them in the mist. But there is something called remote sensing, which will help you detect those units that have camouflage and say like uh, the snow, there may be frostlings or something that are hiding, or there might be like wood elves hiding in the woods. So having some sensing is probably a good idea, just so you don't get ambushed from a direction where you didn't think there were any armies. It sounds like, yeah, you start off with 0 remote sensing, but as your empire improves, you should be able to get some, probably through like the just general empire development path or affinity, I think it is that they're calling it. So I like the sound of that. It's interesting that that mechanic from Planetfall, Age of Wonders Planetfall, is making a return. Having that vision was always incredibly important, and I tried to prioritize it as early as possible. So they also mentioned some of the benefits that some of these scouts get. They're going to be the ones that uncover a lot of the tiles. They're going to be very mobile, and they have extra vision, as well as some things that are specific to the culture that you start with. The Dark Outrider gets extra vision in the enemy's domain and has camouflage abilities. I could see this one being used for like blocking somebody's Cosmite or something like Cosmite. In Age of Wonders Planetfall, people had Cosmite, and oftentimes their opponents would place invisible units on them just to like deny the income at the end of the turn. There's the floating mystic projection, which has the ability to find special pickups, which grant knowledge and mana. Reminds me of the Devar's Prospector, which was kind of broken on large enough maps where you wouldn't run into an enemy for a long time. Like, it just gives you more locations, more sectors to get these pickups, these extra bits of income, and that snowballs pretty quickly. If well, not pretty quickly, but depending on the situation, it can get a little bit out of hand. They recommend you send them in multiple directions. That just generally makes sense for scouts, although I like to keep one with my army so that I can kind of make a decision for my army using the scout before committing all the units in it to wherever um, I was thinking about sending them. I think that was one of the things that ended up getting Tom in that really interesting fight against Bone Dragons in the last gameplay stream that I saw. Um, So the Wayfinder enchantment and enchantment crows are enchantments that allow you to move further and have more vision. One thing I found really interesting in this list was the seafaring line. It talks about how um, you can embark to retrieve floating treasures scattered across the sea. Uh, because if you get this early on, it spawns in some nice things for 2 players, I think it says. The first players, yeah, so maybe if you get there at the same time as the first player, the same turn, then you're going to get something special across the sea to go pick up, which sounds pretty important, pretty game changing, but you know, it really depends on how good the floating treasure is and how far away it is, because it's like a cost benefit type thing. You have to figure out if the cost is worth the benefit compared to some other situations. Um, Advanced sensing seems like, yeah, just a general empire skill, which will allow you to detect enemies in unexplored terrains. Probably one of the later game ones, because being able to detect things that are really, really far away is pretty powerful. Allows you to make um, more long-term plans for like strategic moves. And the last thing I found really, really interesting in this little section is the forced march, which can be a little bit like silly and broken in certain situations. It sounds like if you want it, it's in the general path now, and that you can use mana to double a stack's movement, and that will lead to them taking some damage. So rush tactics are less effective. But if you've played in as many multiplayers as me, you know that people stack the healing operations so that they can use things like force march and then get their HP back and attack targets that other players were unaware were in danger, just because they got to double move in a turn. I still imagine that there's going to be some limitation that makes it so you can't do that on 3 stacks and then heal 3 stacks and then just like, completely surround an enemy with stacks that appeared out of nowhere, or appeared like they appeared out of nowhere. Even like if you have sensing, that's not going to allow you to detect that, I think, yet in enough time to make a big difference, especially if they're very mobile units. If they're like flying and they've got 40 movement or the equivalent of that, that could be pretty annoying to deal with. And then imagine them hitting something like a charge station that gives them back their movement. That'd be like 3 moves in 1 turn, 3 turns in 1 turn for one player, whereas the other person probably is getting one. 1 turn's worth of movement. Um, so yeah, I think we can move on to the map locations here, where we talk about some of the special pickups, resource nodes, and magic materials. I think, pickups are pretty self-explanatory. One thing that's interesting is you can't get extra units from these pickups. There's battle standards there that you can use to rank up everybody in your army, and you're going to want all 6 units in a stack to go on it. That's similar to previous games. Resource nodes, pretty similar to previous games, but magic materials is similar to Cosmite, but also different. It's also similar to luxury goods in Civ games, where you want to collect a couple different things and now unlock some nice bonuses for you. In this one, it's like you collect 3 of a type and then you get a bonus, and there's more than just I think the 8 different choices here. It looks like you can just scroll down a little bit, so maybe the base game comes with 3 sets of 3. Um, and this person is getting pretty close to completing the top one there. Collection effect, Rings of Binding. You can get the Arcane Ore, Focus Crystals, and something stone, Fire Force stone, I think, to essentially make it so that, oh boy, what does that say? Hurry recruitment for units is 25% cheaper. So if you want to spend gold to produce units instead of draft, you can make it cheaper using this set of magic materials, which sounds interesting, sounds different, and it seems like it's there to encourage diplomacy. If you want to get a set, you may have to trade with a free city or another player, and in order to get that, you have to give something up. So I'm really interested to see how that actually plays out in single player and multiplayer, because I think like it could be pretty different based on your opponents and your goals. But who knows? It may be like you always want to attack so that you can go get like the nice stuff as soon as possible, right? Um, After that, let's see what we have next. We have Ancient wonders are exceptional, give exceptional rewards. One interesting thing that I just noticed when I was reading this was that that you need a hero to go exploring. That's a pretty big difference than previous games. Usually, you could just send off 6 units and they could go clear out a landmark or something like that. But no, in this time, in these situations, you need some special hero unit to allow you to get in there. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it's gonna end up feeling like an annoying requirement or condition that previous ones didn't have. So it's going to take some time to get used to and probably be pretty frustrating to veteran players. But I think for new players, it won't make a big difference. They're just going to be like, cool, go check it out. Send in my guy. They're going to go somewhere new and scary. So that it's important to have a leader. Makes sense thematically. Um, Clearing and leveling up. After you've scouted, you're going to want to clear out these guys. And that gives you good rewards. If you lose a unit, it's less bad than previous games because of the way they've changed developing units and making buildings. They use production on buildings and draft on units, so it's easier to replace your guys. Kind of a, useful but less interesting than I think than the infestation section here. They say some interesting things on outposts and infestations in this section here. Outposts just says you can use Imperium here, and you can actually get more than just the hex, or not the hex, the sector, the province that you put the outpost on. You can actually claim the stuff around it so that you can protect more than just one location. Maybe you want to protect like a ancient wonder and some location that produces magic materials. So you put down the outpost on the magic materials, and then you um, annex or add on the ancient wonder that's adjacent to them. So infestations are kind of like spawners in previous games, but they get more intense as the game progresses. There's 3 power levels. They start off, I think, asleep, and then they start producing units after a certain amount of time, probably 5 to 10 turns. And if you don't deal with them, if you choose to like go send your units to clear out ancient wonders instead, or conquer a free city, then those raids will get more intense. They'll become stronger, and I think maybe even more frequent with more units. And eventually you're going to want to deal with them. Um, and they give some pretty good rewards. They'll give you things like hero items and just like raw resources that you can use to hire units or get research, or like whatever you're working towards. There will probably be something that will help you out a little bit. Um, what else do we have in here? Yeah, new infestations can appear later in the game depending on the world threat level. Used to be, or at least in Age of Wonders Planetfall, that you could get new spawners if somebody took a quest for it. So it's similar to that, but it sounds like they can just happen organically, which is interesting because I could see that just like completely ruining somebody's strategy. They hadn't planned for a spawner to appear on their left side of their empire and send all their units to the right side. But I think that should shake things up enough to make it interesting and make it so that you can't just like min max and send everything to one side of your empire. I think that's going to be good for gameplay's sake. This unit looks fun. I like him. The Kragar is one of the terrifying infestation monsters that will try to eat your units. It seems like it's got terrifying gorging. It doesn't look like a big unit. I guess that he can use that on alive units. It's not like a consume corpse type ability. It's like a random chance to just like delete a unit type ability. And I think that's really interesting, especially given the size of this thing. It's going to be different than I think the Glutton in Age of Wonders 3. I believe that had the ability to consume other people too, or consume other units too. So here they mention a little bit more about free cities, and the thing that I found most interesting here is that each of these free cities is going to be led by a hero. And um, if you take them into your empire peacefully, if you make them into your vassal, then they join you and become one of your heroes. If you attack them, then you have to face them on the field, meaning it's going to be both harder to take on free cities and grow your empire through war in the beginning of the game, and it's going to be better to be friendly and let them join you peacefully. And I think that that's great because the meta and a lot of multiplayer communities for Age of Wonders Plan of Falls, you have to attack your NPC faction that spawns next to you, unless you're going for a very specific niche strategy that most people do not. You're wasting experience not attacking them, and this gives you another factor to take into consideration when you're thinking, should I attack this city or not? Um, the cities are going to be inhabited by the main races of the realm. Generally, the one next to you is going to have the same starting race as you, so it's easier for them to join your empire. They vary in power. I think the amount they like you is going to be tuned to their houses and their affinity. So some of them will just be a lot harder to get to befriend you because there's clashes of the ideology. Um, and yeah, that should make it so that not every game feels the same way. You're gonna have your experience on your map, and that's not gonna make it so that you can just use that same thing over and over and over again. Uh, you can befriend them with whispering stones, but the shadow tree can end up spying and I think stealing influence. Yeah, I think that actually comes up later down here. Um, but that's pretty cool that you don't have to be like just friendly with them. You can be kind of like you can use subterfuge to get nice things out of these free cities. Um, what they start off hostile. Some will start off hostile to you, and then you'll have to befriend them. And as with infestations, they'll send raids towards you if you are hostile. So you want to probably befriend them or send units towards them. Ignoring them will probably not work out. They guard things around them, like magic materials and resource nodes. And I believe we saw this event earlier. You can buy the units into your empire instead of killing them, or you can just pay them to go away. I think paying them that 280 gold to get a unit probably is worth it, because I have to imagine that Dawn Defender's a tier 2 or a really special unit that would be kind of hard to get on your own. I mean, 280 seems like a lot of gold, but I don't really have a frame of reference for it. Um, so yeah, let's see what else is in the notes here. There's something about how if a rival ruler is in negotiations with the same people, you'll see them on the gauge of allegiance, which is really useful. If somebody gets there first, then you won't be able to vassalize the free city without attacking the other player. And that's a big deal. I don't think you can drop them down like you could using the Celestian, or no, the Celestians could drop NPC factions down to the next level, not the independent cities. Well, because independent cities didn't have their own relationship with each people. So it's similar to how Celestians could knock down people, but in this game you can't knock people below that level of vassalage. I think once they achieve that, it's pretty hard to break them up without using something like war. Um, yeah, you have to achieve vassalage with them first. That's what that's saying there. Some champions get extra relationship. During gameplay, you can get things that modify your relationship either positively or negatively. You don't want to trespass unless you have the right type of pact. It sounds like you start off with a Pact of Cooperation, then it goes to a Pact of Loyalty, and the last one is a Pact of Vassalage, probably with increasing thresholds of required relationship. And this is a pretty cool one. Once you defeat a hero in battle, you get some pretty interesting options here. You can, I think, recruit them into your empire if you're willing to give up something. Evil characters get 5 alignment. Um, if you send this to his rival, yeah, so you'll lose negative alignment if you do that, right? And then the other one is make my time well, and yeah, they'll join you. So it doesn't show off the second option in this picture, or it doesn't tell you exactly how much it's going to cost, and what else might happen as a result of bringing over another unit. But it is listed in the options here. So there is another way for you to get heroes if you capture somebody's hero or defeat them in battle. then you have that option. And then there was something else in here about if one of your vassals' heroes dies, then it can be really bad for you. But yes, this is it. Hiring them increases your relationship. Heroes can come from free cities. Hiring them can really increase your relationship. And if they get killed, there is a chance that you can get an option to do something with the body. But generally, it's something you don't want because it's going to reduce your relationship with that independent city or that free city. What else do we have here? We're getting pretty close to the end of the dev diary. When you have enough allegiance, the town becomes a vassal. Um, you can decide to keep them as a vassal or try to make them part of your empire, try to integrate them into the empire. And this is something I hadn't noticed before. Apparently, there's a city cap for your empire, so keeping them as a vassal will allow you to get stuff out of the territory. Not as efficiently as if you own it directly, but if you already got as many cities as you can, then you kind of want to start getting things like vassals. They don't all have to be like, um, you know, purely symbiotic or mutually beneficial type vassalage relationships. It could be one that is more benefiting you than them. And as an evil player, I think you'll probably want a couple vassals like that, as well as just having a large empire yourself. I think we may be able to see the city cap in these images if we zoom in. It'll be near the top, right? Um, yeah, I think that it says that's one of two Whispering Stones and one of four cities. So I'm pretty sure you can have more than four cities, but you're going to need to research things in order to get them. Probably certain affinities are better at having cities than others, and I assume that the general tech has ways to improve the number of cities you can hold inside of your empire as well. But yeah, it's looking pretty interesting based on what they have here. Um, I don't see much more in this section that I want to talk about. There is the Rally of the Lieges, which I just ended up talking about in my video earlier this week. And I think I was pretty close to how it actually appears to be operating. The way I thought it was going to work acts pretty close to what I was anticipating before reading this dev diary. So here you can see the image for when you're trying to rally the lieges. It's going to cost you imperium and gold in order to get units in your space, and this happens every set amount of turns. It looks like here it's saying the next rally will happen in 7 turns. There may be ways to speed that up or slow that down. And right here it says for 135 you can muster the lieges. I don't know how that works exactly because I'm seeing more than 135 gold's worth of units below. Maybe you can only recruit 2 of them with the points, 5 out of 9 points. And yeah, it looks like, yeah, that would be like 5 points for the first 2 units right there, right? That would be more than 135. But yeah, basically it's a way to get units from the free cities and the locations that you explore as you go across the map here. So I think most of those units there were things from a free city, but I think you can recruit things like spiders and ogres if you conquer locations with spiders and ogres on the world map. Pretty fun. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this dev diary. Next week we're going to be talking about player versus player diplomacy, combat cities, and well, you know what? It looks like those are the upcoming dev journals. So we're probably talking about Ancient Wonders next week. Until then, have a good one.